And today, I think I will cover the part that how entrepreneurs and innovators, they actually come across or stumble upon or identify the problems that need to be solving. So it's quite a comprehensive discussion. I've taken some notes, but what I'll do is I'll go across and perhaps, you can stop me, interrupt me, and we can chat about it. So the first and the foremost is personal experience that, you'll find that many times people face the problems themselves. Somebody dies in the family because of sickness, or they have firsthand experience. I know a startup that their child had some problems and they're coming up with a device that's going to help all the other children that have that problem. So if you look at the story of Airbnb, the Brian Chesky and Joe Gebbia, they couldn't afford rent. So they kind of thought, okay, how do we solve this problem? And they came up with Airbnb. Now, Sarah Blakey, she couldn't find the right undergarment for white pants. So that sort of led her to Spanx. So, sometimes, you have that pressing personal problem that leads you to a solution. The other one is, which is really important, is observation. By simply watching people, you find that how things are inefficient, you find kind of gaps in the current processes or products. I met a guy in Hawaii many years ago. What he did was, and it's very interesting, the toilet paper, it's not like normal paper. It's got those grooves in it. It's got, the shape. So he had a lot of patents in it, and he was going around the world and selling those patents. And that was, how can toilet paper be soft? And it has got those indentation or shapes that's sort of comfortable in cleaning up the backside. So, it's purely by observation. The other way people come up with ideas is pure serendipity. It can be accidental discovery that leads to identification and solution, or potentially the solution for problem, or sometimes you just find the problem. Alexander Fleming, the discovery of penicillin. I think there's a book called The Discovery of Penicillin. So if you want to dig deep into that story, you're more than welcome to. The other avenue is feedback and complaints, because companies are pretty big on it, that, you have, yes, these days there is a greater focus on net promoter score, but if you're listening to your customers and their feedback and their complaints, it can definitely highlight, the new areas of improvement or bring new products. Now, Netflix started as a DVD shipping or DVD rental company, but after listening to the customer feedback, they actually moved into streaming. And there's a book called Netflixed, which is, I think, by Gina Keating. Market research is another avenue where companies actually conduct market research, surveys, interviews, focus groups, to uncover needs. But that said, sometimes it can be an overkill, because there's a ongoing story where people talk about it. If somebody asked Henry Ford, what would people want? People would have said faster horses. So sometimes it's not just asking the question, but actually understanding what the benefit people are requiring. So every time you're asking that questions, you don't have to really look at what is the answer, because sometimes people can't envisage the future, what the future holds. So you have to really come up with an answer, keeping that in mind, that what's the benefit people are seeking. Technical advancements is one of the ways that, you can come up with the new ways to solve the existing challenges. The battery technology, it actually led to car like, Tesla coming into vogue, and obviously it's popular, and many other companies are following the same game. But you have to, when you are actually looking at technological advancement, and as I said, that people have to be willing to pay. There's a book called The White Space. You may want to actually look into that if you want to go dig deeper into that aspect. Academic and industry research is definitely one of the key areas, because what happens is people who research on topics, they kind of go and read journals, articles, industry reports, and find out information about trends and associated challenges. But the thing that you have to keep in mind is sometimes the journals might be lagging by 6, 8, 12 months. So research happens and it may not instantaneously be available in the form of journal. So, and that is something you have to be mindful of if you are actually looking at research. CRISPR technology is obviously gene editing, is based on academic research. And this is next one is a common one, where people build on cumulative ideas. There's a saying that, I have seen further by standing on the shoulder of giants. So you effectively, you build the future based on how you have got to this point. So you kind of take that and you build on existing ideas. So there's a story about, ideas. You put two ideas together, then, you have idea babies, and idea babies will have further idea babies. So it's kind of, the ideas actually accumulate pretty rapidly and they bounce off each other and multiply. So that's another way that, you huddle the ideas together. Travel and cultural experiences, and people who are in the world of innovation, they do get a lot of benefit about traveling and going to different places, meeting different types of people, because you experience different cultures, environments. You can actually bring different perspectives to solving problem. Networking, I'm sure you've come across the term. You talk to people with diverse backgrounds and industries, to kind of come up with ideas and solutions. And Slack was originally a gaming company. Now, what happened was it pivoted to communication after the networking insights. So there's a book, Hard Things by Ben Horowitz. Perhaps that's a good reference I'll give you. Economic and social shifts is another one where, shift in society or environment or challenge. Think about COVID-19 happened, and suddenly the market sort of started needing online delivery. So online actually got a big boost. Zoom actually became very popular. Now I'm using Zoom right now, though I don't necessarily endorse the company or do anything to do with that. But that said, Zoom actually became very popular because of that. Regulatory changes is another area that, new laws or regulation can create challenges for business. And that leads to kind of solving different types of problems. For example, GDPR compliance, it has led to Apple come up with a different PIN for charging, and the companies have come up for compliance tools, and consultancy companies just have come up. Gap analysis, and this is Kim and Mabonia, the Blue Ocean strategy does go into that, but you look at the market and see what are the gaps in the market, and then you dig deep into the gap, highlight, what are the problems waiting to be solved. People say, find the market in the gaps and gaps in the market, kind of, that's the paradigm here. Dropbox was perhaps a creation in that space. Reverse engineering, now, many a times companies, they prevent, or they they have terms in their terms and conditions, they suggest that you don't reverse engineer, but sometimes what happens is that look at successful products or services, and understanding the problems they are addressing can provide insights into other changes that can be happening in the periphery. So that's another way. Brainstorming, I'm sure you've heard of brainstorming. That's one of the creative ways to solve problem. And Google's approach that you use 20% of time to your other side projects is something that has led to a solution like Gmail. Historical analysis, you kind of see how things happened in the past. You look at the technology that existed 5, 10, 15 years ago, and then you try and bring in those into the new world, in the new era. Polaroid camera, it suddenly become still popular because people want those instant pictures when they're going on holidays. So yeah, they have revived now hobbies, side projects. So many a times when people have hobbies, those hobbies actually contribute to people actually bringing some of those ideas into their working life. And I know it's anecdotally that, when there was a space launch problem back in India, and again, it's a story that the dad was a bit frustrated on the dinner table, and during the discussion, he just said, the family asked, what's the problem? And he said, oh, I'm having this particular problem. And the young little daughter said, why don't you do like this, Dad? And Dad said, oh, yeah, she's just making it up. And then he reflected on the solution. Was actually something from a child, but, and the dad was the scientist. And it apparently, that idea actually helped solve the problem. So, you don't know where those ideas might come from. Sometimes, childlike innocence has a different way of looking at the problem. But there's another one, I would say. If you have watched Star Trek, the old Star Trek, where William Shatner used to be the lead character, I think it was shot in 1960s, and a lot of the technology that came probably came 30 years after the movie was shot. Like doors that open on their own, when you come into the proximity, doors open for you. So those kind of technologies came into vogue much later. Communicator, obviously, right now, the beam me up, Scotty, that technology is still not there, but a lot of technology, it's human thinking. You have to really think outside the box. Sometimes, watching movies is one of the things. Terminator movie, for example, the guy is able to look at objects and identify what those objects are. Of course, Google Glasses, and now Apple's got those AR and VR equipment. So, 1984, I think around that, the Terminator, the first movie, was released, in which Arnold Schwarzenegger comes out of a different time, and he's able to identify, this is a motorbike and this is another human, all those things. So fast forwarded, now it's 2023, and Apple's released a product that will hopefully come close to it. Obviously, you'll need an app for it, but yeah, it's human thinking, human ideas. So you can read storybooks, you can watch movies for those kind of things. Customer service and support channels, these are obviously, as I mentioned before, they capture the frustration, and people have to be listening to the customers all the time. And I know that the chief postie, Ahmed Fahor, he went around delivering newsletters, and the idea was to sort of get close to the customer and understand their side of the story. And that's really important, that anyone in the business to it, because if you don't understand what he's solving, you're not solving the problem. Competition, try and observe your competition, and these days, obviously, it's if I have to quote Kim and Mabonian, that's more like a red ocean strategy. But studying what the competitors are doing or not doing can actually highlight opportunities. Sometimes you don't have to really copy them, but you actually see what competition is doing, what they are not doing, where the gaps are. Can what the competition is doing be improved, made better, cheaper, faster, built more efficiently? If they come across a different process, maybe can you do something about it? Now, Microsoft's development of Bing, they kind of, it came after Google was dominating, and ChatGPT, you look at that, after ChatGPT, hundreds of AI companies have come up. Obviously, many of them won't go much further, but that's what companies do. They see that there is an idea, people like that idea, then more companies come in that space. Environmental and sustainability challenges is another avenue that sort of leads to the world becoming eco-conscious and trying to solve problems related to sustainability or environment. You have now moved away from plastics to disposable stuff, things made out of bamboo, things made out of wood, the dishes, the disposable containers, or clay. So those things are actually becoming back in vogue, which went out of vogue because of the economy, but because of environmental sustainability issues, they're back in the game. Now, Beyond Meat and Impossible Foods are another two names that come to my mind. So that's kind of in a very nutshell way that what are the different ways entrepreneurs and innovators come up or sometimes stumble upon some of the problems and ideas that need actually solving.